back with your next class. In today's class, I'm going to discuss sexual reproduction in bacteria. Like in the last class itself, I have told you, sexual reproduction in bacteria is not the typical sexual reproduction where gametes would be formed or gametic fusion would occur. There is no as such event that is going to happen. Rather, genetic material will be exchanged between two bacteria, and that would be termed as the sexual reproduction, or because it is going to be involving genetic recombination. Alright, so we also call it parasexuality. Alright, so without any delay, let us start. So sexual reproduction in bacteria would be occurring by three processes, that is transformation, transduction and conjugation. All the three processes we'll be discussing in today's class. Alright, starting with transformation. Now, transformation is a type of a process that is exhibited by bacteria at the end of the active growth phase. Like, if you remember, in a bacteria growing in a typical culture media, the growth phases gives rise to a sigmoid or S-shaped growth curve, isn't it? So it consists of three phases. Lag phase, that is the initial beginning part of growth when the growth is very slow. Then suddenly the growth would elevate and it would be occurring exponentially, so we call it exponential phase or log phase. And finally, after log phase is over, here comes the stationary phase. Stationary phase where the growth would become constant or it would not elevate further. Alright. So now at the end of active growth phase means when the log phase is going to be almost over and stationary phase is about to enter. At that time, in typical bacterial cells, there are certain kind of changes that is exhibited. Mostly their cell wall permeability would increase. Alright, so because of certain changes happening in the bacterial cell at that time, a bacteria, it might start taking up foreign DNA that has been shedded by some other bacteria in its surroundings. For example, suppose this is a bacterial cell. Alright. This is its genetic material, the nucleoid. Now suppose this is a part of, or this red colored marked, these are foreign DNA that has been shedded by some other bacteria in the surrounding of this bacteria. Okay. So at the end of active growth phase, this bacteria, it might start absorbing or picking foreign DNA. Okay, some foreign DNA from its surrounding. It might enter inside the bacterial cell. And not only does it enter inside the bacterial cell, this piece of DNA might also get successfully integrated in the chromosome of the bacteria or nucleoid of the bacteria. Alright? If such a thing happens, don't you think these bacteria, which now possesses a new set of DNA, that means a new set of genes, isn't it? So it will now start expressing those genes, and as it starts expressing new genes, that means it will start expressing new characteristics, isn't it? So we can call such a bacterial cell to be transformed cell, isn't it? It has transformed by taking up certain DNA from its surroundings. Alright? So this process is known as transformation. Alright, now regarding transformation, how the discovery of this phenomena happened. It happened in 1928 and it was done by Frederick Griffith. Frederick Griffith in 1928, he discovered phenomena of transformation in the bacteria Diplococcus pneumoniae. Now, before I tell you about the experiment, which was otherwise very simple and consisting of 4 steps, you must first know that what the experiment is all about, or what the bacterial specimen is all about. Alright? So, Diplococcus pneumoniae the bacteria which was used in this experiment by Griffith consists of 2 strains, okay, 2 variants, 2 strains. One is S3, another is R2. Here S stands for smooth and R stands for rough. So what's the difference? The difference is that S3 bacteria is capsulated one. And as you already know from our previous discussion, that capsulated bacteria are always virulent, isn't it? So in that case, because S3 bacteria possesses capsule, it is highly virulent and it causes the pneumonia. It causes the disease pneumonia. And because it has capsule, that's why it produces smooth colonies in the culture media. Alright? So that's why it produces smooth colonies. First thing, and it is highly virulent. On the other hand, R2 strain, it does not have the capsule, because of which the colonies it produces are rough. So it produces rough colonies. And because it does not have capsule, it is non-virulent. That means it does not cause disease. Alright, keeping in mind about the characteristics of both the strains S3 and R2, you can now understand the experiment. Alright, let's see how the experiment was. The experiment consists of 4 steps. Alright, first step. R2 bacteria live was injected into a mice. R2 bacteria is non-virulent. If it is injected to a mice, nothing will happen to the mice. The mice would leave. Right? Second, S3 bacteria. Live sample of S3 bacteria was injected into a mice, and as you know, S3 bacteria is highly virulent. So of course then the mice dies, right? In the third step, S3 bacteria is taken again, but this time it is hit killed. Alright, so some dead specimen of the bacteria is injected into a mice. The mice would of course survive, or it lives. Why? Because even if S3 bacteria is virulent, but here dead specimen has been injected. So in that case, there is no way that the mice would die, right? So the mice lives. Fourth and the final and the most important step is that S3 bacteria hit killed plus R2 bacteria, that is live. That means a mixture has been prepared of live R2 bacterial strains and hit killed S3 bacterial strains. As a mixture, it will be injected to a mice. According to the result of this and this, the mice should have lived, isn't it? But here, the mice dies. Not only the mice dies, from the dead mice of this fourth step, certain live S3 bacteria could also be isolated. But this, to our surprise, live S3 bacteria, how could it be isolated? Because live S3 bacteria was not injected at the first place into the mice, isn't it? It was R2 bacteria live that was injected. But what we are getting from the dead mice are live S3 bacteria, right? So Griffith then concluded that there has to be something that entered the R2 bacteria from the dead S3 bacteria. Okay, something from the dead S3 bacteria might have entered the live R2 bacteria, and that transformed the R2 bacteria into S3. Alright. So what was that particular thing that converted the R2 bacteria into S3 was not further experimented upon or investigated upon by Griffith. He left it here itself. Later on, in 1944, three scientists, Avery, McLeod and McCarty, they further investigated the process, and finally they found out that it was the DNA of the head-killed S3 bacteria that entered the R2 bacteria and transformed the R2 into S3. Alright, so from this experiment, Avery, McLeod and McCarty also had proven that DNA is our genetic material. Alright, so this experiment of Griffith is also known as Griffith's transformation principle, which is very, very important an experiment, and I'm sure you all remember it from class 12's molecular basis of inheritance chapter as well. Alright, so this is transformation all about. Let me revise it once again for you. Transformation means a bacteria would take up foreign DNA that has been shedded upon by some other bacteria inside itself. This will usually happen at the end of active growth phase. Okay, so this foreign DNA would then successfully get integrated with the bacterial chromosome, transforming the bacteria. Okay, it will now be expressing certain new characteristics, and this is what is called transformation. Alright, and transformation, the first phenomena was discovered by Frederick Griffith in 1928 by a simple experiment conducted upon using the bacteria Diplococcus pneumoniae. Okay, later on, by an extension of this experiment, Avery, McLeod and McCarty had also proven that DNA is our genetic material. So this is all about transformation. Let us move on to the next topic, and that is conjugation. So now let us discuss conjugation. Alright. Now conjugation is another method of sexual reproduction in bacteria, and it was first discovered by Lederberg and Tatum in 1946 in the bacteria E. coli. Now conjugation is a process in which sexual reproduction or genetic recombination would occur between two bacteria by the help of pilus. So it is sexual reproduction by the help of pilus. So only those bacteria which has a pilus can participate in this process. Especially it will be present in gram-negative bacteria. Alright. So now, how conjugation would take place? Conjugation can take place by two methods. One is male sterile method, another is male fertile method. Let us see male sterile method. Alright. See, suppose this is one bacteria and it has the F plasmid. As I have told you in the previous class, those bacteria which has a F plasmid, only they can be a pilus, isn't it? So this is the bacteria which has the F plasmid. This red colored mark is the F plasmid, and hence we call it F plus or donor. And the F plus and donor has the pilus. This is the pilus. Alright. The other bacteria that will participate in this process do not have the F plasmid, hence we call it F minus or recipient. Alright. Now, by the help of the plasmid, the two bacteria, whenever they will come in near vicinity to one another, by the help of the plasmid, they will get to join with one another for a brief period of time. Okay, say 6 to 8 minutes. This joining would remain between the two cells by the help of the pilus. So this joining part is known as conjugation tube. Conjugation tube or conjugation bridge. Alright. As usual, this is the nucleoid of the two bacteria and this is the F plasmid. Alright. Now, as the conjugation tube is formed, the F plasmid will start to replicate and make a copy of itself. And the copy will start getting transferred into the F minus cell. This was F plus and this was F minus, isn't it? So the copy of the F plasmid starts getting transferred into the F minus cell via the conjugation tube. Alright. So, after a while, when the conjugation tube will break or the two bacterial cells would dissociate, we can see that the F minus cell also has received a copy of F plasmid from the donor cell. Okay, so that the recipient or the F minus cell has also converted into a F plus now. It has also become a F plus cell now because it also has possesses a copy of F plasmid. Alright. So here genetic recombination has taken place. The recipient cell has received a copy of DNA from the donor cell, isn't it? So this is the process known as conjugation and this is the male sterile method. Alright. So let's see what is the male fertile method. So now let us discuss male fertile method. In male fertile method, the main difference is that here the plasmid DNA, it is integrated with the bacterial DNA. And in such a state, we call it to be episome. Alright. Now you can see the bacterial DNA and the episomal DNA or the plasmid DNA together in the F plus cell, and hence the F plus has a pilus, and as usual there is a minus cell. Alright. Now both the cells, when comes closer to one another, a conjugation tube is formed between them. That is also as usual. When the conjugation tube is going to be formed, the episomal DNA or the bacterial DNA together, they are going to get or undergo replication. And while the replication occurs, see, this is the part of the plasmid DNA that has been replicated, and this is the bacterial DNA that has been replicated, isn't it? So the end that is distal to the F plasmid is called the zero end. Okay? There are two ends here, right? One end has the F plasmid, another end has the bacterial chromosome. So the end towards which there is the bacterial chromosome, that end is called zero end. So the zero end always starts entering the conjugation tube. And hence the bacterial chromosome, one gene after another, starts getting received by the recipient cell. Alright. So this is what is going to be there or happening for a brief period of time, like one gene will be transferred in 7 minutes, 2 gene in 9 minutes, 3 gene in 10 minutes, like this continuously. The bacterial genes or the donor's genes will be received by the recipient. Plasmid will never get a chance usually to get inside the recipient cell. Why? Because for the transfer of the F plasmid into the recipient cell, it will take a lot of time, and that much time the conjugation tube do not remain. The conjugation tube would dissociate much before that. Okay? So because of that, say these are a few genes that has successfully got transferred into the recipient cell. Okay? And then the conjugation tube also would break down. As the conjugation tube will break down or dissociate, the F- cell has received a few genes from the donor, and these few genes will then get integrated to the recipient's DNA. Okay? But then what is happening here? This was F plus, this was F minus. This is F plus because it has the F plasmid, but this, at the end of the process, the recipient cell, does it become F plus here? Has it received the copy of F plasmid? No. It has not received the copy of F plasmid, but only a few genes from the bacteria, from the donor, but not the F plasmid, right? So because of that, at the end of the process, in the male fertile method, the recipient cell remains a F minus only. It never becomes a F plus, alright? And this cell, after the integration of the donor's genes into the recipient's chromosome, it will be termed as a half zygote or a merozygote. Okay, partial zygote or a merozygote. Fine. So do remember one important thing here. This particular cell that is participating in male fertile method, the cell where the F plasmid is integrated to the bacterial chromosome, is also known as HFR. HFR means high frequency of recombination. Why is it called so? Because this cell has 1000 times more capacity to cause new variants of recombination in comparison to a normal F plus cell. So this is all about male fertile method. So now, conjugation being done, let us discuss the third and the last procedure of parasexuality in bacteria, that is transduction. Alright. So now let us discuss about transduction. Now transduction was discovered by Zinder and Lederberg in 1952, and the bacteria was Salmonella typhimurium. Alright, it was discovered by Zinder and Lederberg in 1952, and the bacteria in which it got discovered is Salmonella typhimurium. Alright, now let's see how the process would take place. So transduction is mainly the process of genetic recombination in bacteria by the help of a bacteriophage. Okay, like lambda-phage, T4-phage, all the bacteriophage which can participate in bringing donor's DNA to the recipient's DNA. That's going to be termed as transduction. So let's see how that would take place. Now, first of all, say this is the bacteriophage which is about to infect a donor cell. This is our donor. Okay. So as you know already, when the bacteriophage will infect a bacteria, the entire virus will never enter the bacterial cell, right? It's only its genetic material that is going to enter inside. So this is the viral DNA that has entered inside the donor cell. So infection is caused. As soon as the infection is caused, the viral DNA at first, it will break down the bacterial DNA into several fragments. Okay? And that's how it will take the bacterial cell under its own control. Okay? So these are the small fragments of the bacterial DNA or the donor's DNA, and this red colored marked, this one is the viral DNA. Okay? Infection has been caused. So now that the virus has taken complete control of the donor cell, it will start to multiply. So the viral DNA will start to multiply rapidly and make copies of itself. But see here, accidentally, a fragment of the bacterial DNA has integrated to the viral DNA in one of its copies. Okay? Now the whole virus would be made. Alright? And these DNA, they will get incorporated inside the capsid of the newly formed virus. So this is the hybrid virus, which consists of the viral DNA along with a small piece of bacterial DNA. Okay? Eventually, the virus will be released. They have been released. Okay? So now, this hybrid virus, which consists of viral DNA along with donor's DNA inside its capsid, it will go and infect another bacterial cell, right? This another bacterial cell is our recipient. So eventually, the recipient's DNA along with the donor's DNA will enter inside the recipient cell. As it enters inside the recipient cell, these viral DNA along with the donor DNA might get incorporated with the recipient's DNA. Alright, so see here what's happening. There are 3 types of DNA present here. This is the recipient's DNA, this is the part of the donor's DNA, and this red colored mark is the viral DNA. So donor's DNA has been brought inside the recipient's DNA by the help of a virus, isn't it? So this process is known as transduction. Alright, and the bacterial cell which will possess the viral DNA incorporated within its own DNA, that is going to be now called as a lysogenic bacteria. Lysogenic bacteria. Sometimes due to some kind of trigger, the viral DNA might separate or dissociate from the recipient's DNA, and it might start to function like this. That means it might start to multiply, and it might start forming new copies, and finally eventually these particular bacterial cell will burst and release out all the viral particles. Alright? But until and unless a trigger is received, this is how the viral DNA will remain incorporated with the recipient's DNA, and every time the recipient will undergo binary fission, it will also, the viral DNA will also keep on spreading into the bacterial population. Okay? Because the viral DNA will also get replicated. So this process is called transduction. Now transduction can be of 2 types: specialized and generalized. Specialized or restricted transduction means the virus, every time it will enter inside the host or the donor, it will only carry a specific part of the donor's DNA. Okay, it will not carry any other part, only a specific part of the donor's DNA will be carried by the virus. This is called specialized or restricted transduction. For example, is lambda fudge. Okay? But on the other hand, generalized transduction means every time the virus will enter inside the host, it can carry any part of the donor's DNA. So it will sometimes carry, say, one set of genes. Sometimes it may carry another set of genes. So different fragments of the donor's DNA can be carried by the virus. That will be termed as generalized transduction. For example, T4 fudge. So this is lambda fudge. This is T4 fudge. Alright? And also sometimes what will happen, you see, the donor's DNA which enters the recipient cell, it might not get integrated to the recipient's DNA. Rather, it might be lost over 2 to 3 generations. Such a transduction can be termed as abortive transduction. Okay, that means the newly donor's DNA that has been brought inside the recipient, that gets aborted. That does not get integrated to the recipient's DNA, rather it is lost. So we call it abortive transduction. So that's it regarding the sexual reproduction process in bacteria. So next we'll discuss archaebacteria.